Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Forgive me, I have awful Band-Aid hand right now. That was from working with a guillotine cutter while bookmaking, and well, these things happen. It's not a bad cut, it's just in a place where I'm constantly scraping it and rubbing it, and when the Band-Aids come off, getting the sticky off is not easy, and anyway, we all know how that goes, but I thought I would just share what happened there. So this is going to be the general reading for December the 15th through the 21st. So we're coming up to the winter solstice on Saturday, which is very exciting. And this week I'm going to work with the Mary L. Tarot First Edition for our reading. So let us go ahead and choose our significator, which will probably be, let's see, I've been making Mary L videos, so all the changed cards are first. Let's see, we can find our Fool. There he is. Okay, so here is the Fool. And we're going to go ahead and shuffle him into the deck. There's no mistaking that this is a male Fool. There's just no way to miss that. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle him into the deck, and we'll start the first operation. Okay, the one jumper that we had was the Queen of Wands. So I thought I would just mention that before we get started. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, so the significator is in the first pile this week, so it's a Wands week. That's a difference. We've been having a lot of Pentacles lately for the first operation, but this week we have the Wands. Oh my gosh. So when the significator shows up in the Wands pile, it's fire. And it means that any of our problems that we're looking at this week are going to be solved through intuition. So rather than feeling or thinking or sensing, intuiting is going to be the way forward. And I find that such a relief, because that tends to be the way that I operate and am most comfortable. Yeah. It's, introverted intuition is like my number one thing. So, yeah, wow, that's amazing. So the Wands relates to things that are spiritual. It relates to creativity. It relates to things that we're passionate about. That's going to underpin whatever we see coming about this week, in whatever form that takes. So just be aware that even if we get lots of cups, even if we get lots of, swords that tell us about thinking, or pentacles that tell us about life and work and so forth, our passions, our creativity, and our need to be creative and passionate, and to have a sense of trust, that our life is moving in the right direction, that we're able to fulfill our purpose in life. That's going to be underpinning everything that we look at this week. Okay, so, and the Queen of Wands, interestingly, is already in this pile. So we'll leave her where she is for the time being, lest she become one of our chosen guys. And we'll go ahead and select our Amenti Oracle card. So last week's Oracle card was I hold purity in high esteem, which worked well with the sense pile, with the pentacles pile. You know, taking care of the body, contemplating what the body's needs are in order to keep the rest of our being in a place of purity. So let's see what we have this week. Go ahead and give this a good shuffle. Wow, so these two just jumped out and they feel right. I'm going to, I think I'm going to use both of them. We don't normally ever have that happen with the Amenti Oracle. We have this week, I am peaceful, which is really setting an intention for peace. It's setting an intention, especially this last week, right? This is the last week that we have before Christmas. So a lot of the stress of holidays and things like that are going to be, it's going to be heavily featured. Stress is going to be a thing. So we've got, this is a reminder, you know, hold an intention about peace. What do I need to do in order to be peaceful and calm and relaxed? Because we always have that choice. We have that choice in the moments of pause, and in those moments where there's just that tiniest bit of space in between stimulus and response. We don't have to react. We can choose to take a moment, do nothing, take a breath, take 10 breaths, and make a different choice. Okay, so that's I am peaceful. And then interestingly, here we are. Excuse me. Peak shopping time in the year, and I consume only my fair share is an intention here. And this is a card that comes up. I would like to look at this one in the book, just because this is not one that's come up for us as a group, as a collective group before. Okay, so this is really startlingly wonderful when put in the context of the wands this week, actually. So what she says that's wonderful about this card: consumption is a byproduct of a creative universe. We create what consumes us, and we consume what we create. Loneliness consumes love in order to satiate a hunger for understanding and connection. I'm going to say that one again because there's so much there. Loneliness consumes love in order to satiate a hunger for understanding and connection. It's beautiful. I love that. The modern world lends itself to a dimming of the light of creation as advertisements play to automatons in a wakeless sleep. Yet wakefulness occurs when we rekindle our desires and remember what gave way to the ignition of the pulse of the world. So I think that's very interesting when we think about it in context with the pile, the wands pile. So, yeah, there's just so much there. You know, we're looking at what are our passions, what are the things that inspire us, what are the things that we want to create in the world, what's the way that we want to create our own lives. You know, that's fascinating. We need to rekindle our desires and remember what gave way to the ignition of the pulse of the world. So we need to be back in touch with what is at the heart, literally, what is at the heart of our desires and inspirations, etc. Moving on, she says, in looking at the lesson, I consume only my fair share, we must ask if what we are consuming or consumed by feeds our creation or nourishes destruction. and if we are overindulging by feeding the ego instead of nourishing the soul. Yeah. That's hard. That's really hard. And then she says, the scales of truth are balanced when the weight of your share intends to satisfy a pure desire instead of devour the density of darkness. When your desires glow from a space in the heart, that light is shared and felt by all. So I think we could say that this week, looking at the first operation and what we're talking about here, it's getting back in touch with what's at the heart of what we want from our lives. What is it that we're feeding? What is it that we're nourishing? What is it that we're creating? And why are we creating that? What is it in us that wants those things, that wants to create those things? And what does it serve, And as we do that, excuse me, coming back to that intention of being peaceful is going to take us out of the limbic system in the brain, which regulates fight-flight, and put us back into a space where we have a choice. Okay? And when we do that, it gives us the ability to come back to the heart and to come back to heart-centered space for ourselves and for others. And then from that space, as we're getting in touch with the heart and thereby with our passions and the things that, that inspire us, that put us back in touch too with the intuition and the gut, we can then understand in that conversation between the heart and the gut, we can understand what it is that we're intending, why we want to consume, and what it's feeding. Is it feeding the ego, or is it finding a way to nourish the heart and thereby nourish all of those around us? Okay, that's a lot. But I love the way that these overlap, including in the language. Wow. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the cards to count them, and we can move on. Okay, so we're ready to count the cards. So starting with the Fool. Oops. I always take my Instagram picture in between, so oops. Okay, so we're starting with the 3, with the Fool. Fool is 3, so 1, 2, 3. So Temperance is our first card. How funny. And we're in Sagittarius right now, so we have Temperance. Okay, and Temperance is 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 of Wands. Okay, 1, 2. We have the Sun. Oops, we're not using the Fool as a regular card yet. So the Sun. And it's planetary, so it's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow, 4 of discs. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Page of Cups. Wow, lots of interesting messages here already. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that completes the cycle. So we're working with only 5 cards this week. Very interesting. So we have Temperance, Two of Wands, Four of Discs. Nope. We have the Sun, and then we have Four of Discs, and then the Page of Cups. All right. All right, looking at these cards, we've got a really good a good number to work with this week. It feels like 5 is a very comfortable number, certainly. And I always like it when I really do like it actually when these come out with an odd number, because it feels to me like there's, you know, there's a, I don't know, there's a focal point, and then there's a way of kind of looking at the balance of the reading and of the cards. So I did go ahead. I think she's visible. I'm just going to check my angle here. Yeah, she's kind of visible there in the background. I did pull the Queen of Wands out simply because she jumped. She was the only jumper I had, and I shuffled the deck 9 times as, you know, as riffle, and then I do it 9 times overhand. And she was the only one that jumped this time. So I feel like she's pretty significant because she also came up in the pile. She's also the Queen of Wands. And I feel like she's here to remind us in general, as we look at this spread of 5 cards, that we have the power to hold, we have the power to hold space for our own creativity and our own inspiration. We have ownership of that. At every moment we can choose to hold the space for it while it shows us how it wants to manifest. Okay, so for those of you who may be following the Marielle work that I'm doing and about to do, I will tell you what my keywords are for these cards, because I think that's helpful sometimes to see this practice in action. So my keywords for Temperance are restorative moderation, which is very interesting when you compare it with, you know, I consume only my fair share and I am peaceful. You know, consuming only your fair share is definitely about moderation, and choosing to be peaceful in the midst of, you know, what looks like a kind of an alchemical storm here is a very, you know, a very helpful idea. So I feel like as we're going into the week this week, you know, starting with these intentions is going to be helpful, because we're going to be met with circumstances that require some restorative moderation. Interestingly, as I speak, there is a storm a-brewing outside. We're getting ready for a major snowstorm that's big enough that the National Weather Service is texting people. So it's only resulted in a small amount of snow here, just like a light dusting so far, and some ice, which I discovered because I wiped out on the ice a little earlier here. I can be funny about it because because I was not injured, but I do expect to be a bit sore and bruised later. Yeah, so Temperance, you know, restorative moderation, something that helps bring things back into balance and to restore a sense of calm amidst the storm. You know, taking ownership and responsibility for opposing what's the word I want here? Opposing needs, opposing desires. I feel like it's more about desires and needs maybe clashing with one another. You know, I want to do this, but I really need to do this. Or I feel the pressure to do this, but, you know, despite feeling the pressure to do this, it's only possible to do this. Really just being with that, right? Holding, as I say with this Queen of Wands, holding that space, holding space for intuition and for the answer to arise. So pause, be peaceful. You know, I am peaceful. Take that deep breath. Recognize sometimes there's nothing you can do besides pause and wait a few minutes. You know, see if that impulse is still important after you focus your mind on breathing. You know, focusing the mind on counting the breath. If it's actually very deep practice. When I was a Zen Buddhist specifically, and I still do it now. Actually, it's a wonderful practice. I spent a year doing nothing but counting my breath, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, over and over and over. Sometimes whole retreats where that's all we did, and we didn't do it just sitting down. The instruction was to do it all the time. Come back to your breath, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So counting that 5 on the exhale. Do it once. Count, inhale, deep breath, exhale, 5. And continue until you get to 0. See if it still holds that same amount of conflict. So give this plenty of space, give it time. We're going to see, I feel like this week this is going to be a major theme of the week. Major theme of the week. And in part, that's maybe because we've got the sun here. The sun is about realizing our potential. Yeah. So let's look at the Two of Wands. Here we go. So this is about restorative moderation, and the Two of Wands it's a very interesting card in the Marielle because we've got this doorway here. So where we often see that there's kind of, a stasis. There's two things. There's nothing that's come of that yet. I feel like having that sense of balance, calm, restorative ease, etc. I am peaceful, holding space is going to be necessary in order to walk through this doorway. And the doorway itself is its own space. We're seeing a doorway that through which, we walk in order to, where we look, we stare, however we get through it anyway, in order to do the next thing. What is the next thing? Well, we might have to just sit with that space for a moment in order to know definitely what that is before we walk through it. So rather than being an active card, this one shows that there is an active potential, which is going to be interesting as we get to this Page of Cups. But there's something that we need to do, or there are things that we need to take care of. There are decisions we need to make. There are a lot of them, as we found with this Temperance card, that are going to be competing with one another. And I feel like all of that is going to show us where our priorities are, because we're going to have to make choices. And as we figure out how to make those choices, we're going to need to hold that space so that there is literally organic space for intuition, and an authentic space where we can get in touch with our heart's desire. What is it that inspires us? What is it that is necessary? What is it that will help us move forward? Okay. So pausing at this doorway, it's funny, my mom's nickname for me growing up, and I kind of love this now, especially now that I know that my card, my birth card in the tarot deck is the High Priestess. My mother's nickname for me was being a portal. She used to call me the portal hoverer. That I would not go through a doorway so much as stand at the doorway and look at it, look through it, go just to the inside of it and stand and take in the space that I'm about to walk through and into before actually going. And of course that would cause a terrible pile up behind me because everybody rushes to get through doors. Whereas I tend to feel like, oh, look, this is a liminal space. I wonder what's here. This is interesting. That's just the way I've always been. So I tend to exist in a lot of space that's hard to pin down. But that's what we're being asked to do here, is hover at the portal, wait. Take a moment, breathe, and decide what's necessary before moving forward. Okay, we live in a world that wants us to rush towards every decision, and that's not always helpful. Then we get to the sun. You know, the reason we need to do this, because we're in the process of realizing our potential. You know, the wands pile is telling us this is where to go next. You want to inspire, you want to be inspired, you want to be in touch with what makes you feel passionate and alive. And all of that is part of realizing our potential. So creating space to allow us to know what that potential is, to be back in touch with it, you know, and in order to act on it, I think that's really important. And, you know, where we look at this card, what I'm thinking about here is the ways, all of the ways in which I notice personally that I will get caught up in paying attention to things that are really not about potential or realizing potential. They're about avoiding having to think about it, avoiding and numbing, consuming, taking things in, looking at other stuff, listening to other stuff, watching, you know, binge watching Deadwood, you know, things that I'm thinking about that I've been doing the last few days, consuming stuff, right? Sometimes in the form of snacks, or in the form of, you know, I need to buy something, or maybe I don't want to buy something, but I just like to look, you know, online shopping. Now we can go shopping and feed the shopping addiction at home, even when we're not going to buy anything. You know, those kinds of things, you know, watching hundreds of YouTube videos and so forth. All of these things are the things that we're doing, most of us, right, in order to avoid realizing that potential. And now the deck is, you know, the cards are saying, like, stop. You need to stop. This is a time period where we're doing enough of that already. You know, pause, give yourself space to think through the next steps. What do we want to do next? You know, starting that new year this is important. This is important work. As we begin to understand what we need to do to realize our potential, and we begin to have those intuitive, you know, that intuitive sense about what's next, the next thing is this week to find the way to balance and harmonize our space. Balance and harmonize our stuff. Balance and harmonize the physical world around us, so that it begins to mirror what it is that we want. And this is not small stuff. Like, what do we want in the coming year? What do we want for ourselves? What do we want for the world? What do we want this week? I mean, forget like the future. Like, what is it that we really want this week? And then we need to find a way to bring that to fruition by creating balance and harmony in the body and in the world around us. Not in an obsessive way, but in a way that is restorative, right? What would help restore a sense of balance and make it possible to live with with greater moderation? Okay. I love this card, this Four of Discs, because it's not about hoarding. It's not about money. It's about, you know, three-dimensional physical reality. And when it is harmonized and balanced in a way that feels natural, it's breathtaking. And it puts us right back in touch with what inspires us. We have this beautiful star here. And as she says about consuming only our fair share, we have these beautiful little buildings with those windows. Our light shines right out of them. Our light shines right out of us. You know, the heart and who we are glows. So turn on your heart light by cleaning up your space. There we go. All right, and then finally, we're going to be asked to, you know, leave the safety of the dock. Leave the safety of the dock. It can be so vulnerable to feel like, to feel like we have all of these things that we need to do, that we need to take care of, that we've made these choices, We've made these decisions. We've taken the time to, put things in balance and bring them into harmony with our desires and intentions. But now what? Well, we actually have to leave the dock. We have to take that vulnerability and be with it and hold space for it, as we continue to trust our intuition and move on to the next thing. And the sense I have is that, whether this is moving into next year, and I feel like it is, but I also feel like it's very relevant to this week. The choices we're making around things this week, they will set us up in the coming year for greater stability, greater harmony, and a greater, obviously a greater ability to realize what it is that we want. What do we want moving forward? This is the way to know, right? We know what that is. And it's terrifying, and we have to feel the fear and do it anyway, right? Feel the fear and do it anyway. So baby steps, but start taking the baby steps and moving forward despite feeling like a child and like you're vulnerable. One of my directing mentors, really my main directing mentor, used to tell us, when you have an idea, when you have something creative that you'd like to bring to life, be careful. Treat it very, very gently. Don't tell too many people. Don't expose it in the wrong way, etc. Because it's like a little baby. And its vulnerability and delicacy is such that if you're not careful, it's like putting a pillow, here we go, put my Crohn's bones over it and snuff it out, right? It can be destroyed very easily simply through like psychological sabotage. So be gentle with yourself, take the space that you need. Hold space for yourself and hold space for your creative energies. There we have that Queen of Wands again, to come forth and help you. So a lot of stuff going on this week. I think that's all I'm going to say about it. It feels like a lot. So we'll leave it there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I wish you a beautiful week moving forward, and may we all become capable of restoring a sense of balance, finding our inspiration, becoming more realized, and having the courage to leave the dock and walk into these choices with wholeness and a sense of trust. All right. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye.